Hi, my friend. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm making 6 more tags from my 100 tags in 100 days series. And this week's been a really tough one. Not only is my craft room ceiling still leaking, but on top of it, my husband was also admitted to a hospital with severe back pain, completely unable to move. It was completely sudden and so scary. And I'll be honest, I didn't believe I would film anything this week. But then I remembered what I tell my clients all the time. You don't have to be on top of your game all the time. Showing up for yourself in gentle ways is more than enough. And that's what I would like to share with you today. 9 gentle tips that got me through this week, and it's inspired me to create these 6 cute little junk journal tags. Some days showing up at your craft table feels impossible. Life gets messy, heavy, unpredictable. But even then, especially then, there's something powerful about just showing up in your creative space. So the first tip is keep it simple. I went straight to the 5 background papers I have been using throughout this series. The coffee dyed paper I'm always using to back up my tags, and I love working with archival ink, doing some stamping, and I chose to do this at the end. I am using the coffee dyed paper as the base for a masterboard, just using glue sticks and here this tag bases and little bits and pieces, snippets I have lying around from other projects. When your brain is already full, don't ask to be clever or original. And so I decided to make a masterboard. And that brings me to tip number 2, use what's in front of you. Every single scrap I used to create these 2 A4 masterboards came from this little box that was on my desk. So I didn't go digging through drawers or pulling out bins or had super plans of what I want to do with my masterboard. And somehow using those tiny leftovers felt like a quiet way of saying, this is enough. So I just used my random snippets, tore them even further in smaller bits and pieces so that I could fill my masterpiece just randomly with these snippets. You can see my box had a little bit the same tone of snippets. They are all in the neutral greenish brownish category. So whenever I had a project I was working on and I had this kind of color tone, I put it in my box. And here it's like a little treasure trove, more or less. Like I have this little map piece here where I at one point stamped out a tree. And so I really like this little bit. So that brings us also to our next tip. Let imperfection be your aesthetic. After I glued down all the bits and pieces and covered both sheets completely, I brushed a light layer of white gesso over the collages. Not to cover it, just to blend it, to soften it. It's patchy, uneven, see-through in places, but that feels right. There's something honest and forgiving about letting the mess show. When I woke up the next morning, I knew what my next tip was. Move with your mood. I didn't want anything bold or loud today, so I reached for this soft pink to stencil with, and it felt like a whisper, like something kind. Letting your emotions guide your colors can be surprisingly healing. I started with these more like arrow-looking stencil and just randomly took a corner or the side, different directions to stencil through, just to create some pink soft accents. I really enjoy the process of just allowing myself to intuitively find the spots that I think need some color. After I have finished my stenciling, the next tip was guiding the next step of my creative process. Repeat what works. And what usually works for me is some stamping. I love to use archival ink and my favorite stamps to make some markings on my junk journal pages or my junk journal tags. And I've used these stamps before and I'm sure I will use them again. So when life feels unpredictable, that little bit of creative routine can be so comforting. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, just roll it gently. And as before with the stamping, I just followed my gut feeling and placed my stamp wherever it felt right. Just making marks on my masterboard and creating interest and allowing the process to unfold. Which brings me to my next tip. Create small, but stay present. As a next step, I turned my masterboards around and cut them into equal-sized large junk journal tags. They are roughly 4 by 6 inch each. And yes, even a little project like these tags ask for my attention. Just enough to get me out of my head and into my hands. I wasn't rushing or checking things off my list. I was just here, like quietly making my cuts, and sometimes that's enough to settle your nervous system a little bit. I always love the moment of turning the cut masterboard pieces around. They look stunning. And so now I have to decide on focal points for each of them. And that brings me to my next tip. Let others be your anchor. Not only in my week of distress and despair, friends and family were my anchors. And I loved placing these vintage people in or on my tags. Like these vintage photos feel like tiny echoes of other lives. There's something about placing them on my tags that helps me feel less alone. Like I'm part of something bigger, like a long thread of people making it through. After I finished gluing down all the people on my tags, I punched holes on the top of each tag just to finish them off, and that brings me to my next tip. Add a soft touch to your artwork. I often finish my tags with some ribbon or something like this, and today this old frayed stripe of white linen felt right. It used to be part of a pillowcase from my grandfather's house. I took it all the way from Germany with me because I knew I would like to incorporate it into my artwork. There's something familiar, like worn in and safe with this kind of fabric for me. Just that tiny bit of texture that helps me soften the whole piece, and honestly, my mood too softened while I was doing it. So that brings us to our last tip for today. Cultivate soft eyes and a kind voice. That's what I always try to give myself at the end of a project like this. I finished each tag with a little phrase that felt soft and encouraging, even a bit humorous at times. Not something perfect, just something kind and uplifting. It's like letting this piece of art speak to me with gentle tones. And on weeks like this, that's exactly what I need. And here they are, 5 simple tags made on a hard day but with a soft heart. Not everything has to be deeply meaningful or perfectly planned. Sometimes just showing up with scissors and scraps is enough. I love these beautiful little tags with their imperfection all fitting together, but everyone so unique on its own. I am sending lots of love to you, and if this video brought you a moment of peace or enjoyment, I'd be honored if you like or subscribe. Maybe even share it with someone who needs a bit of gentle creativity today. Let's be in this together, let's support each other, and I'm wishing you a wonderful day. Bye for now and enjoy the rest of the tags.